Hi guys, my name's Dav and welcome to D&DGaming. In for review this time is point-and-click puzzle game Samorost. Samorost, initially released in 2003, is developed and published by Amanita Design and released on their website as free-to-play. A remastered version of the game released in 2021 for Windows PC and Mac OS. It is the first in a series of games with sequels Samorost 2 releasing in 2005 and Samorost 3 releasing in 2016. It should be noted that we are playing the remastered version of the game from 2021. As always, reviewing the game with me is my brother Dale. So Dale, what were your expectations before playing this one?
I've been aware of this game for years, but never really looked into what type of game it actually was. I was surprised to hear how short the game is, so that certainly got me more intrigued. I think the overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam is what made me notice it in the first place, and so I did have fairly high expectations for it.
I wasn't really sure what to expect with this one. I'd not heard of the game before playing, and the title doesn't give anything away. I later found out that Samorost is a Czech word that describes objects sculpted from wood, so I guess if you're from the Czech Republic then you'll have a better idea before going into the game. I did notice the game's completion time is just 15 minutes, so it's safe to say I didn't have high hopes for this one, but I was intrigued. Once I realised it was a Flash game, I kind of twigged. So what were your general thoughts following playthrough?
It's a very strange game and very random at times. If you go into it with no real preconceptions, as I did, it might throw you off a bit. I hadn't watched any footage of it beforehand, and I definitely had a bit of a what the fuck is this moment. It also has a very dreamlike feel to it, and there's no realism to it in any way. It felt kind of like the devs made the game from a dream one of them had or something. The game is only 15 minutes long or so, as we said. It's definitely the shortest game I've ever played. Well, I guess other than those that I rage quit in the first 5 minutes. In all seriousness, this is likely to be one of our shortest reviews so far, simply because of how simple and short the game is.
Yeah, I think it's possibly the weirdest game I've ever played. I thought as I was playing it, it felt like a student project or something. Sure enough, it turns out that creator Jacob Dvorsky did create the game whilst a student. It did remind me of the old Adobe Flash games era though. For those that are not aware, Adobe stopped supporting Flash back in 2020, which subsequently killed off the development of Flash games. Simple animated games that pretty much anyone can create. The Flash games era had run for close to 20 years, with the earliest games coming out in the early 2000s, Samorost being amongst those early pioneers for the development of the genre. So in terms of graphic options, because it's a Flash game, there's none whatsoever on this one.
Exactly, I don't have much to add there. There's no settings, no options whatsoever.
So in terms of graphics and graphics performance, it's not worth putting our PC specs up as we usually would at this point with this type of game, as it's not going to make any difference. The graphics themselves are, well, simply a bunch of images cut out using Photoshop and compiled in Flash, so no surprise. Sounds kind of harsh, but just calling a spade really. It is what it is.
Yeah, you will be able to run this game on pretty much anything. Calculator, potato, maybe a pregnancy test.
A COVID test.
There is quite a random mix of graphics. The backgrounds have a certain appeal to them, but many of the foreground objects are very random, and it does feel very pasted together in an odd way. This also contributes to the dreamlike state of the game and art style. So in terms of player controls, well, basically it's just a mouse, as it is a point and click game after all.
Yeah, nothing to add there. So in terms of game story, the game starts with a little alien guy floating on a kind of odd-shaped planet thing in space that looked like something I pulled out my nose when I was picking it earlier. He spots another tree branch-looking object floating through space on a crash course with his home planet, so he launches in a rocket and lands on the other planet to explore.
In terms of the game mechanics, as the character lands on the planet, you have to guide him through a number of areas by solving puzzles using point and click mechanics. Simply a case of clicking things in the right order or multiple times to solve the puzzles. I think it's quite a stretch of the imagination to call them puzzles really though, but it is labelled as a puzzle game, so there you go.
So in terms of UI, there's no UI to speak of in the game.
No, exactly, not much to add there. No UI at all, just a single menu in the top right corner which shows the credits and an exit button. So in terms of sound and music, well, I thought it was very zen-like music with the odd bit of other genres mixed in at times. The objects that you click on also have their own sounds, which sounded quite good actually, and quite funny at times.
Yeah, the sound is very random and largely connected to the point and click mechanics, as Dale's pointed out. Click on something on the screen and it will make a sound, usually something weird, or they're quite funny. There is a bit of music in the game that comes and goes in the background, and it is quite varied. There's not really any voice acting in the game. It's mainly full of weird sounds that the character and creatures make when you click on them. So in terms of bugs and glitches, I didn't find any bugs or glitches in the game.
No, me neither.
So to sum up things I liked about the game, it was very different to anything else I've played before. It was very abstract, off the wall, and certainly unique. I guess it stands out because of this, so I can see why it was taken forward and gained a bit of a cult following.
In terms of things I liked about it, well, it was a fun little game, and it's so short it's over before you know it. It's a free game, so you can't argue with that. I did like the music. I understand this was changed in a 2021 remaster from the original music, so I can't compare to the original from 2003 as I never played it. It made me feel kind of zen playing it due to the music, sound and atmosphere.
So in terms of things I didn't like about the game, it just didn't do it for me. I spent most of my time just thinking, what the fuck is this? And how the fuck did it come up with such a weird game? The concept of the game is nothing out of the ordinary. A little alien sets out to save his home planet. But the way it's designed and implemented is very out there. I think he must have smoked too many joints that day when he came up with this one. There's also zero replayability to the game.
In terms of things I didn't like, it feels very much like a demo or concept game as it's so short and has such a limited gameplay. I understand it basically was a concept for Samorost 2, and so perhaps we'll have to play that at some point to see how much they expanded on the idea. It's not so much puzzle solving, but just clicking around the screen to narrow it down what you're actually supposed to do to move on to the next section.
So in terms of scores, what do you think about this one?
As it's a free game, I can't really slate it too much, but I certainly wouldn't want to pay for it given how short it is. I think you're unlikely to dislike the game, so I would recommend a playthrough if you have a spare 15 minutes or so. I can only just recommend it though, and so it's a 6.5 out of 10 from me.
So for me, if you're into abstract arty type games, smoke too much weed to care, or into Adobe Flash games, then this will fly right up your flagpole. It wasn't a bad game if you like this sort of thing, I guess, but I just feel like it's a game that isn't necessary. I could think of a ton of things to do in 15 minutes that are much more worthwhile than playing that game. So for me, it's a 5 out of 10. Well guys, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment. Hit that bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video, and we'll see you in the next one.